Let's do a fake hello.
Okay.
Sometimes I cut in that I say this because it's funnier. But so let's
Let's
just go
pretend we said
way
hi.
let's go way over the top.
I'm ready.
Okay, wait. Let's put our hands over the camera and then we'll pretend like hello and welcome. Oh, I got a hair in my face. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Non-Essential. I'm your host, Alec Worth. It's been a few weeks since my last video. I had an interview with some comedy friends of mine and a whole episode lined up, and then the horrible incident with George Floyd happened and a lot of the protests started ramping up around the country and the world. And it just didn't feel right to put something out there that would distract from the message that's finally getting some attention. So instead, today I wanted to take the opportunity to use my platform to listen and learn and discuss some of the issues that we are facing as people that live in an unbalanced system with a good friend of mine who's been doing some amazing work out there on the front lines in some of the protests in LA.
Now, in the spirit of movements, we gonna keep moving, right? My brother said we are gonna die with you, we are gonna sweat with you. But I want you to remember something. We are going to continue to live with you. Am I right? Look at you all here in the sunshine. We are casting out the darkness. We will continue to show them who we are. We will remind them that we are the people, and they are supposed to protect and serve us. And what we are doing right now is protecting and serving each other. I have seen kindness. I have seen support. I have seen help among total strangers. That matters. So, we are going to continue to show them what a revolution looks like. We are going to show them what a movement looks like. And when I look at each of you, and you see my face, and you hear these voices, you remember you were here. You will show them we are here, because Black Lives Matter right now.
His name is AJ Lovelace. He's an incredibly talented actor, director, writer, and overall leader. We filmed our conversation on the 13th of June, so some of what we discussed has changed, but overall the topics we discussed have been and will be relevant until we see some real systemic change. So without further ado, here is our conversation. Hey!
What's going on? How are you?
And we're back. All right, so you've been going to and leading a lot of these protests all over LA.
Yeah.
Like I've spoken to you a little bit before about how they've been going, and they've been like for the most part peaceful, but I was wondering if they've and you were telling me before that like some of them like they were on the fringe of becoming like looting, and you've been like trying to stop people from that. How has that been going recently?
Okay, so I'll have to backtrack just a tad.
Yeah.
So I'm now on, I think, my second like full week of being out here every day. I'm out there at least 4 to 5 hours a day at the least. So my first protest was actually on Sunday, and actually I believe it's the 31st of May, because the day before was when LA had a set of riots where you start to see big time looting in on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood, which is right around the corner from me. So the following day, I went out to just take pictures, as a photographer, as a filmmaker. I just wanted to see what's going on. I've said this before, but I really believe that we are the truth tellers of our time, because in the sense that no matter what we document and once you take a photo, you're capturing a moment in time. you can only skew that so much. Typically what you tend to see is like the story gets skewed by the photo because of what is written afterwards. I don't really write anything other than a quote or my sentiments on the moment. So a photograph of a building on fire and firefighters is a building on fire and firefighters. So I went out to Melrose. I wanted to capture some of what was going on. I was out there for about 2 hours, and this was on a Sunday. And then later that evening, I just decided I was going to go to downtown Los Angeles to City Hall. I just figured that if I was in the downtown area, I would catch people, right? That's the assumption. I drive out there. It's the first day that the National Guard has been released. So I'm driving to downtown Los Angeles. I finally hit downtown, and all of a sudden, I'm just behind a bunch of Humvees and military trucks on the street. Tons of them, like tens of them are just in front of me. So I'm driving next to them, and I'll drop you a little bit of footage from those moments where I'm just looking at this Humvee. And I've seen these Humvees in war-torn countries where they're supposed to be. I've not seen them on the streets in America. So I'm kind of like, this doesn't make sense. I get to the protest. I end up speaking, which is amazing. I didn't know anyone there, but I end up speaking. And I mean, the crowd is easily in the thousands. I have no idea how many people are there, but I hear it's in the thousands. Flash forward to the following day, protests move into Hollywood. So they're back again in the area that was looted, and National Guard is here now. So this is Monday now. So National Guard is here now, and they are on edge. You know, they just think things are going to be getting worse. There are helicopters, about 3 or 4 helicopters flying directly over my house. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder what's going on. I run out to get pictures of the helicopters. I hear chanting. I look to the left. I see police barricades getting set up. I run to the right. I see hundreds of people turning onto the street just off of mine. I go out, I'm taking pictures with them, I'm documenting, and people start looting. Some people the majority of them aren't. There are a couple of people off to the sides and to the back who are looting. I run right in front of the Walgreens glass, and I'm like, please don't do this. This is not why we are here. You are confusing the message. A couple of people raise like monkey wrenches at me, swing at me. I don't remember anyone actually touching me. However, there is a photograph of a couple of people actually pushing me out of the way. So that was in the LA Times. So that I didn't actually remember until I saw the photograph. And then I end up running to the front of this group in front of a major intersection in Hollywood. And I literally got down in front of them, and I convinced them to all take a knee, and I pled with them. I said, please, like, we cannot lose sight of why we're out here. We cannot make ourselves into the very people we're trying to fight against. If we're saying that these people are breaking laws, we cannot be breaking laws ourselves, because we lose credibility as a movement.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many hundreds of people were in front of me, but they were totally silent. And someone actually ended up releasing the video of that moment. And I had a couple people text me and call me like, are you safe? I just saw this video of you. I'm worried, because what you realize in the video that I didn't realize in person is the National Guard is standing behind me with their guns in their hands. And then once that group moved away in front of me and I got them to go pretty much towards the Hollywood Hills, like the areas where people are living, more residential, I realized that there's a line of police officers in front of me, guns drawn, because they didn't know what was like, why that group had stopped. And it was this sort of moment where I'm half aware of how serious and dangerous this is just for me. But the whole time I'm more concerned about the fact that all of these people could get pulled into something they don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Something they're not expecting. And I led them for a few more hours peacefully. And one of the things I started doing was using the group to call out other looters and rioters, not to go and physically address them, but to kind of publicly get attention on them, because suddenly they feel embarrassed that they're being seen doing something they know they shouldn't be doing. And I would just start chanting and say, keep marching, keep moving. We're not here for looting. And people would just start looking at like, where are people looting? And the people who were looting or tagging would suddenly be like, oh, and they would just either stop
Spotlight.
or, yeah, they either just stop and freeze or just leave the group. And no one had to physically touch them. We weren't going to go throwing people out of the group,
Yeah.
but you kind of shame them out of doing the BS that they're doing. And I will say, coming now about 10 to 12 days forward from that, I'm not seeing it as much. I'm not seeing it all, to be honest. There have been a couple of minor instances, but it's like one person who just jumped on to the march, and usually they fade out so quickly. There's not another incident.
I feel like it, from what it sounds like, the looting is people using the commotion and the like
Large
group,
numbers.
yeah, the large numbers as a smokescreen
Yes.
to get their own way. And so
It's
that's such a
totally
good,
camouflage. It's
exactly, and
total
that's such a
camouflage.
good tactic, is just to put their attention, because that's kind of the problem with a lot of this stuff, is there's no attention and no accountability. And if
Right.
we put our attention consistently on it, then we can battle it.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's out there as well, and he was saying that he saw a Mercedes and an Audi with 4 people in masks, like everyone got out, broke into, there was a perfume store, and then like a jewelry store, and then
Mm.
just like robbed it. And he's like, it's organized crime like that. And
Yeah.
it was, yeah, those were like a couple like upper middle class, like rich kids getting out, taking advantage of the smoke screen of the and the distraction of the movement, and using that to their advantage. And there have been a lot of people that have like, there it's interesting because there is a split, I've noticed, in oh, you cut out for a second. Okay.
Sorry, I'm
No,
here.
all good. There is a split in people's opinion about the looting over the country, because some people are saying, well, like, it's, people are angry and they're putting their energy into that, and I would agree that it's like, compared to what we are protesting, and like I've been out there a little bit too, it pales in comparison. But I also agree that it distracts from the main point of all of this, and it's not,
There's
let's be better, let's like try and raise the bar.
there's
But
a
then
couple.
in Minneapolis, sorry, one sec, in
Yeah.
Minneapolis it worked. Like, I don't think had they not gone like crazy and just sent a real strong message, I don't think they would have arrested those officers.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing with that. One of the things that's really important is Black people have not had a voice in this country. We've been expected and demanded to do things for a country that has not shown us that it loves us back. A lot of times you'll see a situation where a Black person is speaking and suddenly a white person will just start talking over them. And then there's no way to get back to speaking about things that are impacting Black people. And in these sort of moments, what happens is there's a place and a time for rioting and looting. You have to be very clear about who you're addressing. So when they burnt down the Minneapolis Police Department, when they burnt police cars here in Los Angeles, that was very clear to say to that organization, if you will, we are tired of you. Specifically, you are a problem. This is what we are trying to tell you, that we are furious with you. It doesn't help the movement or the message to get a little mom and pop shop. That doesn't help anything. That's not on message. So if that's who you're targeting, you're just looking for chaos. You're just looking for destruction. And that's obvious to a lot of people. And to some people it's not so obvious. But when you are specific in who your target is, knowing your audience, you are like, oh, we have a problem with the police. Let's go to where the police are. So there's two things to that. At the top of a movement, it is critical. It's helpful. It shows how serious people are. It addresses the fact that people are fed up. They are done. They are absolutely done, to the point where they're going to be like, we are going to literally burn this down. It is a symbol of people's frustration and is a direct action of people's frustration. So that is important. But what's more important after that is having people see that there is real pain here. It's not about being pissed off. There's real, genuine pain that people experience every single day in every single moment of their lives. Something I've been saying to white people is, or anyone who is not Black, but particularly white people, is take everything you care about, everything you experience in your life, just everything you're interested in, right? From the way you do your hair, to the people you spend time with, to the hobbies that you have, and then put racism on it. That's what it's like to be Black in America. That's what it's like to be Black in this world, is because nothing you do is not touched by racism. There were literally laws around how Black women could display their hair. To this day, there are instances where people aren't able to get jobs or go to school because of their hair style, how it naturally occurs. So that is something I think that has been making it clear for people, how it's a system and it shows up in every way. And that's why you're seeing the rioting and looting now is becoming so clear and it's so differentiated from the rest of what's going on. Because if that's what you're doing, that's not about a deep-seated pain. That is about being lost and confused. But then there's also something to that and what's happening to communities.
I think I mean the like looting a mom and pop shop, that doesn't help anyone except Amazon. Like honestly. But the targeted kind of messaging has been like a lot of it's been really powerful. I've been to a couple vigil protest things here that were like very peaceful, and it was just like hundreds of people for the most part, like still socially distant, even though like, and it was like I don't know who it was, this Instagram account Justice for George Floyd that like kind of organized it, and um they had an interesting way of like, because the crowd would get so big that even the megaphone wouldn't hit the back rows and people
Yeah.
were trying to stay spaced out. So they'd like the person like organizing it would like say a message, and then all the people in the front area who heard it would repeat that message and it would echo back. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like surprisingly effective. It didn't get like telephoned at all, but it was really powerful. And then it became like a lot of it was like, then we'd like kneel or sit down for like 20 minutes. And I like it's really inspiring seeing like not only all over America, but even in Europe, like like where this doesn't affect them. They don't have the same system, so they don't have the exact same systematic like oppression. What were you gonna say?
Well, to that point, I've been saying this a lot to people, is around the world, people are going, oh my God, something bad is going on in America. And then they realize, oh, something bad is going on here as well. So there actually have been, I've noticed some, because I thought that way as well, but I saw that some of the statues that have been taken down in Europe are of colonizers, are of people who continued methods of slavery in those countries. So even to that extent, it means, okay, so this is something that continues to happen. And it kind of is like this weird thing where it's like people didn't acknowledge this and they didn't believe Black people. They were like, maybe you're being overly sensitive. And it's like, maybe you're just so used to this, you don't notice.
Yeah, it's just like a lack of like empathy, because for a lot of people like they have zero experience and zero like it's like blind spots. Like I had an epiphany, and I've heard the term white privilege before, uh but I've only heard it by like my introduction to that term was by like some fringe activists, like people yelling at college professors in videos on the internet, and so I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound like it applies to me. And it also, by the term, it's like the term is a little bit like misleading and kind of bad marketing, because it sounds like you are a privileged person. Like, oh, it sounds like, oh, it's just a guy in boat shoes and vineyard vines. But the definition of white privilege doesn't mean you've had it easy. It just means your color of your skin isn't one of the reasons you've had it hard. That is inarguable. Like, that's something that like, oh, that, of course, like that, like everyone can agree with that. Like, if you have
Uh,
eyes.
yeah, to that point, one of the first things that I would encounter when I would talk to, anytime I'd say white privilege to or privilege to white men, the first thing that comes out every single time is, I didn't grow up rich. That's always the first thought.
Yeah.
Consistently, it is no matter what age it is or wherever they're from, it is consistent. I didn't grow up rich. And I've always said, if they don't get you on race, they get you on class. And it's one of those things where, again, it's like I said, just imagine everything that you experience and then put racism on it.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah.
it's the term is just, I think for a long time it was just a communication error of like the messaging of what, like, and it's not like asking people to acknowledge that. It's just asking them to, like, let's start from a place of fact. Let's start from like with a look at reality of the situation, and like move forward from there.
But the thing about that, see, this is actually how it works, is because even in this moment, you're like, I don't think that we should be asking people to acknowledge it. It's like, that's where it starts. The fact that it's not even acknowledged,
Yeah.
because again, that's how deeply rooted it is, that it doesn't feel like it needs special attention, because that's a starting point.
Yeah.
And so, and one of the things you said is like, um, you said something before that was really critical, but to the point of what it was before, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you have to remember that, especially in this country, Black people have been dehumanized, literally dehumanized. So you're not seeing what we're experiencing, because you're thinking already it has been conditioned to treat Black people as not human, because the conditioning is humanity starts at whiteness and goes up from there,
Yeah.
or goes down from there. So it's like anything below whiteness is suddenly less than human, is less than humanity. So it's hard to empathize and connect, because it's just being treated as a completely separate thing.
I think it's also like a lot of people get defensive when they hear like a term like that, or when they hear the concept, because they think like, well, I'm not a racist, so that, like, I treat people well. Like, I've never like seen people as like different than me, but it's not about your individual self. It's about the system, and it's about the systemic oppression of people, and that we are not starting with equal opportunity. And just acknowledging that it's no fault of your own, like, for anyone, how they were born, what color they were born, what system they were born into, and what advantages. But just acknowledging that there is a difference is a step forward, rather than like, and not taking that term personally, which I think that term is like, it's a little bit bad marketing, because people get so defensive about it. But like, once it has the definition, um of like, it's just, race isn't one of the things that makes your life harder, like, people can understand that. Like, you can agree to that.
There's, I think, the only thing that I will say about that is, I think people should take it personally. You should take it personally, because now you can personalize it. And when you see a George Floyd, you know me. So when you see a George Floyd, you'll think that could be AJ.
Mm.
And now you care, because it's
Yeah.
personal for you. Um, don't take the accusation personally, in terms of, I'm now blaming you for 400 years of slavery and 400 years of that. Don't take that personally. but personalize it so that you can have empathy. That's where empathy comes from, is from personalizing something, where you go, oh, I can really hear that. I can really digest that. And with that being said, when people think about racism, they think about it in terms of saying the N-word, attacking people. The thing about that is, you may not be explicitly racist, but you can have unconscious bias. You can have unintentionally racist thoughts. That don't mean that you're an active racist. It means that we are all participating in a system of racism. And when you personalize it, you make it clear to yourself that, okay, it is a bigger thing than just my personal actions. But if everyone recognized that it happens to other human beings I might know and care about personally, then they start to say, well, that Black person or that brown person that I love, I don't want them to be in that space. And it has to start that way. But what's also important is, I don't want to tell people like it's just about changing hearts and minds. It's also about changing the system. That's important. So we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's like, to that point, I think like I want to like link down below, because I have realized that like I'm, as personally, I am a procrastinator. I I have
Same.
tendencies to procrastinate, and I like never, here's another like example of privilege too. Like, I have not been actively disenfranchised by the system. Um, so it wasn't in my mind to make it a full priority, or just to have my attention on the fact that like I'm like in America, we are lucky enough and unlucky enough to have people representing our interests.
Mm,
And like I don't, I think it should be, in an ideal world, and in like using the system to our advantage, we should know every single like district representative of, like, they should be more famous to us than the Kardashians.
mm-hmm,
And we should know exactly how they're voting. There should be complete
mm-hmm,
transparency on those things. And
mm-hmm.
so like going forward, like no like self-shaming about the past, but like I think going
Right,
forward, making, that's one of the things that people who like maybe can't make it out to some of the marches or are like vulnerable, they can, oh, you cut out for a second. Um,
sorry.
they can help. Like that's one of the active things that people, like actionable things that people can do, is like make sure you're registered for the census, because for the next
Yes,
10 years, that our numbers and our registering for that determines how many representatives you get. Make sure you know who you're voting for months before, so you can do the research
right,
for the November election, and make sure you're registered to vote, which is easy. You just like Google that, and it
right,
like say, "Am I registered to vote?" And my like call to action that I've been telling people is like, find your laziest, biggest procrastinator friend. Maybe it's you, and make sure they've done those basic steps, and then that's a starting point. And then there's like steps forward. Like what further steps would you go for?
I think so. That's a really interesting thing that you talked about. So one of the things that's important too is the census is definitely important. Um, but I do understand like some people have a fear of the census, because currently, if you kind of tell them like there's a lot of this group over here, they might start policing that area more, because that is one of the things is, I want to get to this and get back to your point, is where it's been interesting, because a lot of white people say, well, you can't get rid of police, or defund the police, because I feel comfortable with the police. The irony in that is, police are not in white areas as much as they are in minority areas. So the irony is, we spend more time with them and we are less comfortable with them. But to your point about actionable steps, something I've been saying a lot, and I think it's actually largely based on a conversation we had prior, is informing people that These are public figures. They are local representatives. It's okay to know their names. It's okay to know their work emails and their work phone numbers, and sharing that information with your community so your community can reach out to its community leaders and organizers to help the community. We should be able to contact them. So in terms of getting registered to vote, absolutely, because a lot of people have been like, well, who should I vote for? And I'm like, well, are you even registered to vote before we get into that conversation? Because I don't want you to be so focused on this candidate that you're promoting them and supporting them, and then you forget to vote, and come election day, you're like, I didn't register. Because it happens. You hear all the time where people are like, oh, I love this girl, I love this guy. And then they're like, oh, did you vote? No, I wasn't registered. But I thought they were amazing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm actually working on is a young woman reached out to me about a friend of hers. And I think that we can encourage this is if you know someone who tracks these things really, really well. She was telling me about her friend creates a spreadsheet for her. I'm going to work on trying to get a site that hopefully can start more local right now, and maybe as other people contribute can become a bigger thing nationwide, where people create spreadsheets, where they create spreadsheets for on local levels, but then on bigger state and national levels of who and why you're voting. And so that's something that I'm going to be working on, because that was just a really great idea to be like, because people were saying to me, like, I don't even know how this person gets from just being a random person. Sorry, I can hear marching. Who goes from just, it's early, who goes from just like a regular man or woman who's like, I have an idea for my community, to someone who's now an elected person, where it's a selectman or councilwoman. They're just now a person who's active. So I think what we can do is, if someone you know is very involved, ask them to help you better understand the process. Because if you're having that question, someone else has that question, and share it. Share it on your social media. Use this platform for good. The internet is the most beautiful and most dangerous place I've ever been. We should be using it to help inform each other. So that is something I'm trying to encourage, because as people inform me, I inform other people.
Yeah.
So that's what I think can be our biggest strength. And also, if you're going to a college or university, you have access to that database, that has to be fact checked. That has to be heavily scrutinized and fact checked so that you can use that information for studies. So that is a resource I spoke to a young woman about yesterday, that she does a lot of her searching about policies and elected officials through her university's database. And it's fine. That's what it's there for.
Oh, really?
I had, and
a
it
good
has to
life
be
hack.
heavily scrutinized.
That like that's the step that so many people skip, because we just it's easier, and it's also like not everyone has the time to do your own research, so we just take what the like
Trickles
video
down.
news or the like media tells it. Exactly, it's a game of telephone, and that can go wrong, and also that can be sensationalized, or they put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, and the but this is an Austin Powers joke.
No,
The but no, for real, like the what was it called? Uh oh, that they're like they released during a couple months ago. We were all like they were like only showing, I mean, obviously like the news always only shows the scary parts. That's part of why I put up like the videos of the peaceful protests that I went to, and like I appreciate when people are posting that, like you are posting like videos of the peaceful protests going on, because they're only showing like the negative, like looting and everything, and like trying to like fear monger. Some of the channels are trying to fear monger on both kind of sides of the issue, and
yeah.
I don't think chaos, like that type of like chaos, it might inspire some action, but it also might inspire some defensive action by like the wrong, like I think that sparks a lot of what is going on in our presidential elections. But
Right.
the no the doing your own research and like kind of make like doing your own fact checking is so important.
Yeah. To that end, I think, so talking about the fact checking, So they just released, they just passed a bill, if I'm not mistaken, called like Breonna's Law, obviously about Breonna Taylor. And um, we can, I have to double check exactly what it's about, but it's based on what happened to her, about how they, no knock warrant came into her house and killed her, murdered her in her own home. The thing about that is they passed this bill around her murder. The men, the police officers who murdered her are still not charged. So you might see this bill and be like, progress, but the people who murdered her have not been charged. So that's where fact checking is important, and just doing a little bit of research. And also, what I've noticed now is people aren't relying on the news for the news. They're relying on Instagram videos from regular citizens, in Twitter from regular citizens who are out there every day. They're like, oh, yeah, mom, I know you heard that on the news. My friend who's actually just 6 feet away from that camera person just showed me this. So remember, it's all about what's in and out of the frame. It's
Yeah.
all about that. You know what I mean? So what happens a lot is the police kneel with people and shake hands. Literally 5 minutes later, rounding people up, shooting bullets at people. That's why a lot of those people have the bullets hitting them right in the face, because they are so close. And that's not how you're supposed to use that. There are also steps to escalation. A lot of that gets skipped. So, and then
Yeah.
you're kettling people. You're kettling thousands and hundreds of people with police vans. Of course, people are panicked, and you're shooting tear gas. I'll tell you something from my own experience. When we marched in Hollywood, now 2 Mondays ago, the tear gas was around the corner from me, and I could feel it burning. And it was around the corner, and it was in the evening time, and just a little bit of wind was pushing it, and my eyes were starting to burn. And it was around like half a block from me. So when these things are happening to people at close range, people are getting shot in the chest and in the face. So many people now are losing their eyesight from these bullets. Um, and not to like scare people, but my point with that is doing your own research and checking from people that you may or may not know, and just being like, okay, what's going on in this area? The Citizen app, not to plug in app because I don't know any of them, but I've been using that to be like, what's going on around me? Because you might
Yeah.
hear noises but don't know what's happening. But regular citizens like you
Yeah.
are posting and sometimes recording videos and uploading it, so you can see that's around the corner for me. I know where that is. I know if I should take certain measures to be more safe.
Yeah.
So just, you know, um, cautiously relying on your neighbor for information is important. Because remember, it is our community, and we do say whose streets, our streets, when we chant. Rely on the whole notion of getting a cup of sugar from your neighbor. Well, I'm getting 2 minutes of live video from my neighbor, so I know what's going on
Yeah.
around the corner from me.
No, I see like a story in the news about like LA is like going insane, and like that's my first instinct is to call like you or like a couple of
Yeah,
my friends out there, because I was like, okay, are you safe? Is this bullshit? Like
right.
is and like what's actually happening? Because they're
Hmm.
saying the world is on fire. Like,
Right, right,
and
right.
um did I send you the Citizen app?
No, no.
Oh, I sent it to a couple people. I thought that might have been me.
Oh,
It's basically a digital version of a police scanner, which
mhm.
when I was here during 9/11 in New York, and
It's been around that long?
no, not the app.
Oh,
No,
oh, oh.
but during 9/11, like my parents, out of like 900 kids' parents, my parents were the first people to pick me up from school because my mom is a witch and just had a bad sense of like something's happening. And we went to Radio Shack after the first tower got hit, and everyone
Mm,
thought it was an accident
I
because
remember that.
yeah, and we're at Radio Shack, and the TV at Radio Shack was flipping on an automatic program schedule between the news and this music channel. So then they're like, fix the TV, we got to see what's happening. And like they're talking, and then at one point they're like, oh wait, something's happening, and then it switched to and then you see like a plane go into the frame, another plane go into the frame, and then they switch to the music channel, and then they switch back, and the towers were just gone. You couldn't even tell that it was the same shot because it was just dust. And but we picked up a police scanner. We went to the grocery store. We got rice, water, and we're sitting by the police scanner all night to see if it was safer to leave the city or stay in the city.
Right.
And because my dad knew what to do, like I wasn't like as scared. Like it's because
Right.
we were like, and being prepared like that is always a better situation.
That's the power of information. Because what happens is you'll see, I've seen it even now, is like I'll be out there and a noise will happen and people start to panic. And I'm like, don't panic. Don't panic. Let's take one more second to see what's happening. Typically, someone drives over a piece of metal in the road. Someone accidentally has bumped into a guardrail and it just clinks because they're all tied to each other.
Yeah.
But again, if you let that panic carry on, then you have a new issue to actually worry about.
Probably
so that's, again,
worse issue.
Right. But that's where relying and trying to trust your neighbor is important, because when I tell you, people have given me water, people have given me food, people have given me such amazing shows of support out here. I've only been in Los Angeles for about 6 months, and the way I've seen people rally together just to be helpful. People, I want this to be so clear to people. People are literally just showing up to the protest just to hand out water, just to hand out Gatorade. They're buying large bulk items of snacks like protein bars. Medics are showing up. People who just have safety kits, who clearly aren't medics, and they're just like looking for someone who knows how to distribute Tylenol properly. And there are people who show up with gloves, who show up with masks, and who show up with trash bags. So they're helping. They're saying, here, stay safe, keep communing with people, and also being like, hey, let me also protect our planet, because that's still important. Let's pick up the trash out here. The way I'm impressed by people just picking up trash. People are just walking around with trash bags. I don't even know what their affiliation is to the movement. They're just like, let's just show them that we can come together in unity, we can be peaceful, and we can be responsible and accountable for our actions. I've seen the best of humanity out here. Even in what might feel like the scariest times, I have seen the best of humanity out here. Truly. And it's not just to say that, oh, the movement's perfect or anything like that. No, I started this by telling you that there are people who are looting and rioting and making things worse. But there are also people out here trying to keep it on message and make it better in real time, not like days later after we've seen a terrible news story about how disgusting and filthy protesters have left their city. So I just wanted to give those people credit, because they are so important.
That's important to hear, and like for people to hear too, because like no, you're so right that like the only way to get the full story is to like be there or to hear it from many people.
People, yep. Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild. But again, I think that's the thing I try to encourage people about, is feeling empowered and how you can help. People can help online. If you are not physically going out there, you can share information. You can share information about local representatives. You can share information about bigger national issues. You can share information about actual policy changes.
So our conversation got cut a little short because of technical difficulties. But what we continued to discuss were the importance of making sure you're registered to vote at least 25 days before the election, which is November 3rd. So why not do it now? There's a link in the description below that takes you to find out if you're registered and to register you if not. Also, the importance of making sure you filled out the census, and so has your household. This is important because it determines how many representatives your district gets for the next 10 years. So how well you're represented in the House, and also how the federal budget is allocated to each district. So for more on that, my good friend Kristen Bray made a really funny and very informative video called Don't Get Counted. I linked that below too, as well as where you can sign up for the census. It's all in the description. And also the importance of informing yourself about your local district representatives, how they're voting, who they are, and keeping yourself and your network informed. And these people, their offices have phone numbers and addresses, and it's their job to listen to you. So if they're not, vote them out. I want to give a very special thank you to AJ for sitting down with me and for talking to all of us, and also for all the important work he's doing out there. For more on AJ, I got some links down below. He's got films, he's got web series, multiple webs, I don't know how to pluralize. Really good web series. Just click the links. And he's up to some really interesting stuff. He's a talented artist, and I admire him greatly. And he cast me in something too, so you know he has talent. And that's all for today. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Ding the bell for notifications when new episodes drop. And I will see you soon.